hear me if I talk like this? Yeah? Is that better for the translators? Great, okay. Good evening. My name is Eriel Deranger, and I'm a member of the Athabasca Chippewan First Nation, and I'm a Dene or Dene Supene woman that resides here in Edmonton. And first, I just want to say thank you for inviting me to come. Originally, the request was for Chival and Adam to come, and he sends his regrets for not being able to come, but he's very busy right now in the community, dealing with a lot of community issues, and he will be at the Healing Walk for those that do come. So those that do want to meet him, he will be at the Healing Walk. So again, I just want to thank you for inviting me to come. When I was asked to do this, one of the things that came to my head was thinking about a people's social forum and potentially a people's social forum in a place like Alberta. And what struck me the most about this idea was the fact that 5 years ago, when I started this work, working with different environmental NGOs and organizations, people didn't even know what tar sands were. When I said the word tar sands, people were like, Tarzan? What? What are you talking about? And the fact that what we've seen in the past 2 years even is this huge emergence of the climate and energy activism and environmental activism converging with Indigenous peoples and in the Indigenous struggles to protect their treaty rights, their lands, and their cultures and their identities. So it's just really interesting to see how much has changed so quickly in a very short period of time. And it's really inspiring. I mean, everything from the marches in Washington, D.C., around the Capitol, the protests we've seen in Ottawa, even the protests and the conversations that we're seeing at the different types of power shifts, not just here in Canada, but in the United States, and the global power shift that just happened. We've got a big, huge banner and statement of solidarity from those folks. And just the fact that we're seeing this, and that when you say the word tar sands, people know what you're talking about. They don't just know what tar sands are, they know what's happening to the people on the ground. And so I'm inspired by that, and I'm inspired by the fact that we have you people here talking about potentially having a big people's social forum, not just in Canada, but looking at options to potentially have it in places like Fort McMurray or in Alberta to really send a message home to the Harper government and to all governments, not just the Conservative governments, that we need to be changing things, not just for our energy needs, but changing the way we see justice in this country for everyone. So for those of you that might not know who the Athabasca Chippewan First Nation is, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on who we are. The Athabasca Chippewan First Nation is a community that resides largely in the community of Fort Chippewan. Fort Chippewan is a unique place because it's not a reservation, but it's a hamlet or a township. And in that small, tiny township is sort of four very distinct groups. There's the Athabasca Chippewan First Nation, who are Dene. There's the Mikisew Cree First Nation, that are Cree. There's a Métis settlement, and there's a settler settlement. This is about 1,200 people at maximum when they have, during the cold season, we have more people that settle there. So 1,200 people, and that is a diverse group of people with diverse needs and diverse rights as well. And so the interesting thing too about Fort Chippewan is that it's not just a small township with a diverse sector of people, but it is an isolated northern community. The only way in and out during the summer months right now is by boat or by plane. There is no roadway in and out, which means foods and staple supplies have to be shipped in either by boat or by plane. Fortunately this year, because of the high waters, which have been unfortunate to other parts of the province, they're actually able to freight their supplies up this summer. But for the past 5 years, that hasn't been the case because of the water withdrawals from the Athabasca River system have made it harder and harder to navigate that river. In addition, in the winter months, there is a winter road. So you can drive on the winter road. However, what we've seen with climate change is that winter road is opening up later in the year, and opening up earlier in the spring. So that's becoming less and less of a reality as well. So this is a unique township, a unique center, and it is also about 250 kilometers downstream from the largest industrial project on the planet, which is the Athabasca tar sands. So, I know this might be a really dumb question, but does everyone know what the tar sands are? If you've heard of the tar sands, put up your hand. Okay, everyone's heard of it. So I'm just going to give a little bit of a 101 on that. So, you know, tar sands is the largest industrial project on the planet. It consists of it makes up about, sorry, I lost my notes for a second. What we're talking about is one of the largest oil reserves, only second to Saudi Arabia. And 20% of those reserves are accessed by mining. That's open pit mining, the same types of mining we see for diamond mines, big, giant open pit mines. So that represents about 20%. So the other 80%, which is often not talked about, is in situ or SAGD, steam-assisted gravity drainage, or in-place mining of oil sands. And the reason why I like to mention the in situ or the SAGD, can you guys still hear me? Okay, sorry, I just thought it disappeared a minute. The reason I mention that is because 80% of the 440,000 square acres of tar sands in the ground will be taken out through in situ, which is going to completely divide the landscape of Alberta. It also is some of the most energy-intensive ways to access oil in the ground. It creates massive amounts of greenhouse gas emissions, uses massive amounts of water, and creates massive amounts of toxic runoff or tailings. And open pit mines, although they only represent 20%, they have a larger footprint, if you will, on the landscape. And the open pit mining is what's in the heart of the Athabasca Chippewa First Nations traditional territory. Right now we are talking about 20 different major oil and gas multinational companies from across the globe that are converging in the Athabasca tar sands, where we see most of the development right now. And they are mining out thousands and millions of barrels of tar sands oil per day. The byproducts are toxic tailings ponds. This has become a major contentious issue for our people, because what's happening with those toxic tailings is they're storing this toxic runoff in what they like to refer to as ponds, but are more like lakes. We have approximately 180 square kilometers of toxic tailings now currently in the province of Alberta. These lakes are so big you can see them from outer space. The other alarming thing about these lakes is these are not lined areas of toxic contamination. They simply dig a hole in the ground and they put the toxic contamination in. There are aquifers, groundwater, and river systems such as the Athabasca River System in such close proximity that it's impossible to say that there is not leaching and leaking of these toxic substances into those very water systems that not only the people rely on, but that the animals, the plants, the ecosystems, waterfowl, large game, fish, berries, medicines, you name it, is being contaminated with toxic runoff from these toxic tailings ponds. In addition to the toxic contamination, we have the massive amounts of water withdrawal, which is starting to become something that's more and more talked about in this province. In the province of Alberta, we're in the process of privatizing our water, first in right, first in line for water licenses. So that means that these big oil and gas companies, if they've got enough money, they can buy the water licenses before some of these small communities, First Nations communities, rural landowners, so on and so forth. And that's going to mean that they're going to own those rights forever. And if we want water at some point in 20 years, 15 years, we're going to have to buy those water rights from these corporations. The dewatering of the Athabasca Delta is leading to things like not being able to access traditional hunting grounds, fishing grounds, and minimizing our transportation and routes to and from our community. This has become a serious problem for the community of the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation and the people who reside in the township of Fort Chippewa. So, what are we doing about it? Well, we're definitely not just sitting on our hands and hoping things will get better, and we're not waiting for anyone to save us either. The Athabasca Chippewa First Nation is a unique First Nation. We are not simply trying to make deals with industry or government to try and get more money, but rather we are trying very, very hard to protect not just our lands and our waterways, but our people, our culture, our identities, and the animals that reside within our traditional lands. Shell Oil, one of the largest multinational oil and gas companies in the world, currently has they represent about 11% of tar sands operations right now, which when you think about it, that's quite big. And they are looking to expand their projects. They're looking to more than double their current production by expanding one of their existing mines called the Jack Pine Mine and developing a brand new mine called the Pierre River Mine. The Pierre River Mine will be 27 kilometers from the border of our reserve. You will literally be able to see it we have a reserve called Poplar Point where we have people that live off the land 24/7, 365 days a year, and they would be able to see the mine across the river from that. So ACFN has decided that we need to take a stand and that we are no longer going to stand for the expansion of the Alberta tar sands into our traditional lands. So we have taken the line of no development north of an ecological line called the Firebag River. The Firebag River is just a river that runs to the north, and the ACFN has said enough is enough. We have to put our foot down somewhere, and this is where we're going to draw the line. So we've literally drawn a line in the tar sands, and we've said we're not going to allow any more development. So the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation has taken a hard stand and stated that we will not accept these projects as they are proposed, and we will not allow development north of the Firebag River. This is not an easy task for a nation. This requires massive amounts of resources, massive amounts of people power, scientists, researchers, biologists, doctors, lawyers, teams of people that are going out and collecting data, traditional ecological knowledge holders, and a lot of patience and a lot of money. The Athabasca Chippewa First Nation has spent probably just a little over $2 million in the last 3 years fighting the expansion of Shell Oil's projects. And that was just to fight the Jack Pine Mine expansion. We haven't even begun our battle of the Pierre River. In addition to that, the ACFN is not just challenging multinational companies, but we're also challenging the regulatory body, the governments. We are challenging the very governments that are putting in place laws and regulations to allow these companies to continue expansion unabated in Alberta's tar sands. They are also creating new policies to sidestep consultation. We have new consultation policies being developed in the province where we basically say we agree with consultation as it's set out before they've even developed new policies for the regulatory reform. They have completely taken out our ability to challenge projects on Section 35 of the Canadian Constitution, which is the section of the Canadian Constitution that has to deal with Aboriginal rights to consultation, to the protection of hunting, fishing, trapping, and gathering practices.